I'm right here. How are you doing?
Oh boy. I mean, you can't expect to have a talk with that name and I'm not going to make jokes about it. And oh my God, look at that shirt, dude. Look at that shirt.
Yeah, I don't know. I bought it from somewhere. It might have been the MLOps community, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's a good shirt. It's a
You
timely shirt.
rock.
So
Dude, you rock for wearing that. All right. So, just because you're wearing that, I want to mention that there are a few people on this stream that bought a shirt from the MLOps community just today. And I'm going to give them a shout out and I'm going to give away some free books. So let me see who is Hakan. If you are out there still watching this stream, reach out to me because thank you for buying a shirt. That is awesome. The Bad Things Happen a Good Data shirt that I am wearing, Hakan, you get a book to go along with that shirt. And we have Andy. Andy, you know who you are. If you bought a shirt and you want a book to go along with it, reach out to me. I'm giving away swag like I'm Oprah today. This is awesome. Now, Joe, because we got a minute before you're going to kick things off, all right? I decided
yeah,
to write you a song. Do you mind if I play you this song?
please do. I love songs.
All right. So don't mind if I sing out of tune. Don't don't mind the guitar potentially being out of tune. Can you hear that all right? You hear everything, yeah? It's not Zoom's not.
Well, I might be hallucinating it, but I think I can hear it. Yeah. So.
Here we go. This is the story of the data engineer. Changes jobs once or twice a year. Technical debt is building up. It's time for them to pack up their stuff and get the fuck out of here.
Thank you, Demetrios. That was awesome. And it's
And
very
with
true
that,
too.
I mean, it's not about it's not really supposed to be true, but it kind of is.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. So, or maybe it's fake. I don't know. You might be hallucinating more than GPT.
So I think we can kick off your session. And I will say before we do that, just in this last moment, if anybody, for those like two people that are watching who have not bought your book, do yourself a favor, buy look, there it is, The Fundamentals of Data Engineering.
It helps pay for my coffee. So thank you.
Oh, that's a nice mug. What mug was that?
It's a nice mug. Yeah, it's from Materialized. It's really
dude,
nice.
I have a Materialized mug too, and they did not give me that nice of a mug. So I got to go talk to somebody. You know people at Materialized.
I do. Yeah, they got nice swag, but if you sing them a song, maybe they'll send you a nice mug. So
I need to send somebody a song at Materialized. All right. So go ahead, get after it. I think we're all good. And I wasted a ton of time on this.
No. So it's time well spent. Time well spent, bro. We'll talk in a bit. So
all right. See ya.
Thank you. Okay. Awesome. So we're going to talk about a few ways to fail with data observability. This is one of my favorite gifts in the world. I just try and use it everywhere. This might be me when I wash my car sometimes. I don't know. It might be Demetrios when he washes his car or his guitar. Yeah. So anyway, fail. Why talk about failure? Well, first of all, let me talk about myself. Who am I? Actually, next slide, please. Yeah, cool. So I'm Joe. I'm a recovering data scientist. I've worked in data for over 20 years now and probably be working there until I'm in the grave. I just like this industry for some reason. I co-founded Ternary Data. We're a data engineering and architecture firm. I also am a professor at the University of Utah. Surprisingly enough, I actually teach people. So what else do? I have podcasts, I blog, I speak, I wrote a book. So anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about failure. You're interested in that. So next slide, please. Cool. So what you're going to learn? Data observability is hard for reasons you might not think. I guess I'm guessing you know what a data observability is if you're at this conference. If not, welcome to data observability and reliability and so forth. Shifting left and right. This is a concept that I think needs to be talked about more. We'll talk about that. Addressing root cause, right? I come from a process background, lean, and so forth, and I like thinking about root causes. I think that it's something that, as a profession, we need to think about a lot more, which we'll talk about. And so, again, failure is easy, but let's work hard for the win. But I'm not here to talk about winning and success. That's for losers. Let's talk about how to fail. So, awesome. Next slide. So why should you care? Well, data observability, it's a full contact sport. I would say data is a full contact sport too. And so this also includes you, right? And so again, root causes are important. Learning how to understand what they are and assess them and address them is highly critical, especially when talking about stuff like data reliability. So we'll talk about that. And data observability, it shines a light on your systems. When things break, fixing them is key, but maybe we let them break, right? We're talking about failure here. So next slide. So failure, right? Why focus on failing? I think that, there are a lot of books out there that tell you how to succeed, in various aspects of life, including, life in general. That's great, but there's a lot of ways you could succeed, right? I think that the footprint of failure is actually more interesting to dissect because there are fewer ways I think that you can fail. Arguably, right? So as I say, the graveyard is sometimes easier to understand. So, and I think people are also hardwired to notice failure in train wrecks. I mean, how often do you, when you see something in the, some sort of like a gossip story gone wrong or some sort of drama in the news, like how often do you pay attention to that versus a story about how awesome things are with somebody, right? I think that, we're just hardwired to look at failure. I think, understanding ways to fail means you can figure out ways to succeed. So next slide. And as Charlie Munger, he's the VP of Berkshire Hathaway. He helps run it with Warren Buffett, who you may have heard of. But I love this quote, right? So all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. So anyway, let's get started. Next slide. So here's the first way you could fail with data. Practice data observability theater. So in the real world, you're hired to do a job. I mean, you succeed by doing your job well and gaining stakeholder support, but you want to fail. So let's talk about the first way to fail miserably, theater. So go through the motions of your job. Actually, don't do anything at all. Probably don't open your laptop all day if you can help it. Just go tune out. Go play a guitar, go play video games, go hang out with your dog. But if you have to look like you're working, here's some ways you could do it with data observability. So treat your job like a data observability LARP, live action role playing. So what this means is, I don't know if you've gone to a summer park and watched people playing swords and knights outside, but yes, grown people do this, and you should do the same thing with your job. Treat it like it's theater. So by lots of fancy data observability tools, probably all of them actually. Just go to Matt Turk's data landscape slide and just look at all of them and just purchase all of them. Implement all of them, but don't do anything with them, right? So what I see often in my consulting practice is people will get a data observability tool, and they'll just leave it on, but never actually notice that it's on or don't tell anybody they did it. And so this presents, I think, some pretty interesting theatrics that only uncover themselves when things fail and you don't do anything about it, which we'll get into. Some other ways you can fail and practice data observability theater. Don't develop a rapport with the teams to the left or the right of you, shifting left and right. Just basically throw a bunch of work onto them and give them a bunch of alerts. Don't really tell any actionable information. The alert should be vague or borderline useless. Keep people guessing all the time. Like, what does the alert mean? Like, what should I be looking at? What should I be monitoring? Just don't tell them anything. Just, have your tools running or don't, or better yet, just turn off monitoring and alerting altogether. It's annoying stuff anyway. You don't need it. So, And when people ask you how things are going, just to say things like, everything's amazing, it's awesome, and then say, how are you doing? That's a good way to, I think, get people off your back. And again, it's all about theater. So anyway, next slide. Incident response, right? So don't fix the root cause of problems. In fact, do everything in your power to avoid doing this, because this keeps you employed. The more problems persist and the longer they go unaddressed, the more you stand a chance of, thoroughly annoying people, but maybe not getting fired. So data has a flow in a life cycle. So, ideally, if you want to be successful with observability, you want to, solve the root cause of the issues wherever they occur in the data life cycle. Some common things would be like alerting, monitoring, your data stack, looking for traces, debugs, working with upstream developers to help fix the issues that they may have caused, as well as things like data governance and so on. So root cause, right? If you wanted to learn how to succeed with root cause, you would use things like 5 whys, and techniques from lean, right? So lean is a process of uncovering waste and eliminating waste and bottlenecks throughout a process. But your job isn't to do that. That would be silly. So that stuff is for other people. What you want to do is since you want to learn how to fail miserably with data observability, let's look at some ways you can do that, right? So again, make sure your observability and reliability provides as little context as possible or other useful information. Your job is to provide very useless information. So always try and strive towards that. I don't know if uselessness ability is a metric, but it certainly should be your KPI. Let me see, overly rely on your data observability tools, right? And so don't question whether they're right or wrong, just use them. But obviously don't go into the root cause of why an issue occurs. Like that again, that would be too much work. Your job is to do as little work as possible, assuming you want to fail. And so, but if you're pressed to fix, try to address a problem, create the appearance of fixing the issue, but obviously just bandage over it. Make sure you're actually not fixing the root cause at all. So just, whatever the, maybe the first line in your debug stack trace is, just address that. That would be a good thing to do. If the error keeps popping up over and over, just ignore it. It's fine. It's annoying anyway. So, avoid accountability, right? So, if somebody asks like what happened, just tell them like, just make up a name. Somebody named Rick who works in the other department, like it's his problem. He's the one that caused it. They'll send people like chasing after, poor Rick who doesn't even exist. That's how dumb they are. I think that's pretty cool. Another way, if you're on call after work, turn off your phone or Slack or anything that people need to get a hold of you. Like that's, you're off, your on call time is actually your play time. So you should treat it like that. And again, just avoid, dealing with any, root causes. That's, just really silly. So, on to the next slide. Silos are pretty cool, right? So I think that you should build up as many silos as possible around you, your tooling, your department, and everything else. So you don't need help from others. In fact, getting help from others makes you appear weak. So you should always try and do things yourself as much as humanly possible. If anyone asks you, like any stakeholders, people you're reporting to ask you if you need assistance, tell them we got it, we're fine. We don't want any help from anybody else outside of our, our silo. So build as many of these as possible. You could also call them kingdoms. I think that this is a really smart approach to making sure nobody knows what you're doing. And when issues arise, you can always point to other people, right? So Rick over in IT, that's his problem. Sarah over on the dev team, she made a mistake, even if it's not true, right? So I think you should behave like a North Korean dictator and try and stay as isolated as possible. Like that is what you should really strive for if you want to build silos in a really effective way. Now that you're cut off from the rest of the world, you're totally free to ignore all data observability issues. They're mostly fake anyway. These tools, they're designed to just throw fake information at you. So you should just ignore them. And the problems will just disappear on their own anyway. So not a big deal. Next slide, please. Okay, so now this is a key one, right? So definitely try and burn as much social and political capital as humanly possible. Usually as, on your first day of work or, whatever. But you know, so in the real world, you're granted a fixed amount of social and political capital, right? I mean, you would intelligently want to treat this as a punch pass, for which you get so many punches before you completely blow through it. You, on the other hand, like to live dangerously, and so you're going to just go up there and get all the punches at once. Maybe there's some ways to do this. Create alert fatigue. This is a great way to do it. So just like carpet bomb everybody, including the CEO, with just like alerts about whatever is happening in your data observability tool. Again, these are all fake things anyway, so it doesn't matter. So just like send them out to everybody. You know, another way to burn political capital is just don't respond to issues, pass the buck to people. Like I told you before, that is an awesome way to do it. You know, create as much hatred for your data team as possible. Like just do a lot of stuff that will cause animosity. So I think that's a really good way to do it. You know, and go to work every every day with the intention of just doing everything that I just talked about, right? So practice data observability theater, don't fix root causes, build lots of silos. You know, and especially when you build lots of silos, there's nobody who's going to help you. So mission accomplished there. And so yeah, I would say, you know, and if you get fired, just go get another job and just do this over again. Like I think that's it's a really good path. As Demetrius sung in his song, you know, data engineers, they like to get jobs every you know, 1 or 2 jobs a year or something like that. I think you should up those numbers a bit. Try and get 5 jobs a year or something, and just burn through political capital at all these places. You know, make sure your reputation is incredibly stained throughout the industry, and that so anyway, next slide. So yeah, happy failing. I wish you the best. You know, this, I know it's going to be a lot of work to you know, completely decimate your career and completely decimate your company's ability to use data observability. But you know, hopefully I've at least provided you with you know, the seeds of you know, I would say you know, some awesome silos, you know, some great do nothing activities for you and your team, you know, and hopefully you can fail as miserably as possible with data observability. So anyway, next slide. Are there any questions?
Oh my God, how could there not be questions? Are you kidding me? What was that, man? I was trying to eat something while I was reading this, and I kept almost choking because I was laughing so hard. What the?
Well, service I provide. Yeah. So, you know, I feel like there's no shortage of blog posts on how to succeed again. But what I notice over and over in my consulting and just talking with, you know, countless data engineers and data practitioners is these are just the sorts of things that people just keep screwing up over and over again. No matter the tooling you buy, if you can't get the stuff right, like, you know, take the inverse or the converse, like actually build political capital. Don't pass the buck and try and like, you know, address root causes. Like, it's shocking how little this actually happens. So my thing is like, screw it, try and fail as hardcore as possible, since you're probably not going to succeed at this anyway. So
yeah, because of a lot of external factors that are going to be getting in your way. So you might as well just go down flailing. Now,
yeah,
I got to address something
anyway.
Yeah,
go for it. Yeah.
Speaking of Rick, I got to address something real fast because there is one of the funniest comments I have ever seen in the chat right now. Devin just put, "Don't let this talk cause you to exhibit bias in hiring people named Rick."
This is true. Yes, I'd agree. You know, yeah, or exhibit bias in hiring. You should maybe just hire everyone who's named Rick, and then you could like actually point fingers at them, and like everyone
like that Spider-Man
thoroughly
meme.
Confused.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly, like the Spider-Man meme. So I would actually counter what Devin said, and you should actually just hire everyone who's named Rick, or even if they have a different name, that should just be their name on Slack. So, but yeah, I mean. Yeah, Rick. Yeah, you'll go find that person. You know, make sure they're like 50-50 male and female too, so everyone just like, what the hell is going on here? But yeah, so yeah, but again, I mean, you know, it's a bit of a tongue in cheek, you know, kind of poke at just what I've seen a lot of people do. But you know, again, hopefully these are practical counter examples. You know, because where I got this from, actually, this whole thing was Charlie Munger. There's a really good book on my bookshelf, you know, Poor Charlie's Almanac, and he talks about what was it at the Harvard high school in LA. So he gave the commencement speech there, not Harvard University, but the high school there. What was interesting was he actually taught him a few ways to fail at life instead of succeed. Cause he's like, well, I mean, I'm not smart enough, and I'm not smart like Charlie Munger either. So I'm just like, but his whole thing was, obviously try it, don't pick up bad vices, or pick up bad vices if you want to like,
Yeah.
ruin your life and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but this is the same kind of approach with data, right? I mean, I've worked with countless companies and seen, countless things. And these are the common themes I've seen over and over that just tend to sink data teams like a freaking torpedo. So, and it's an inescapable thing. Like you can try and work your way around this with fancy tooling or, pedigree people from fine institutions. And I just found over and over, it doesn't mount to a hill of beans if you can't get this kind of stuff right or wrong.
Well,
So,
I mean, you talk very much like to the extreme of this, right? And so I think looking at the extreme helps us realize if we are leaning that way at all and if we have a tendency in that direction. And so we can kind of course correct if we are seeing ourselves going in that way. So it's nice to make a joke out of it and talk about how the extremes are where we want to get to or don't want to get to, but it is very useful at the end of the day. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you talking about it like that.
Well, I mean, it's like those, you ever watch those Scared Straight shows where they take the kids to prison to show them like, yeah. So not that bad, but Tom Segura has a really funny, the comedian Tom Segura has a really funny skit called Bikes that you should go Google. He talks all about the Scared Straight show. But anyway, I digress.
Dude, well, I just got to point out that every time I talk to you, it's like, oh yeah, I was reading this book, and you do a lot of reading. I know that you've dropped in conversation before the book Principles by Ray Dalio, and you just dropped this Charlie Munger, Poor Charlie's Almanac. I mean, it's good. You are able to get inspiration from all over the place and then infuse it into this data engineering.
Yeah, I mean, you got to read widely, I think, and think widely. It definitely helps. I think over and over, again, I think this is any profession, but if you tend to like read and be very myopic in your profession with the information you consume, I think it puts you at a horrible disadvantage, actually, right? So I think it's always been my thing to be very multidisciplinary and the way I read and think about problems. Munger calls it the Lollapalooza effect, where at some point when you've mastered the domain, many different domains, dozens of domains, you start thinking of ideas that are just, I would say, a bit interesting, right? I mean, nobody would really think of these kind of things, and so. But now you can just use ChatGPT to come up with all your ideas, so it doesn't matter anymore. So,
dude, I was gonna say that I thought you were gonna drop a ChatGPT reference in the presentation, like, oh, in the new tools section, use new tools, or oh, you don't need to worry about any of this. You just can query ChatGPT now.
I mean, you joke, right? But it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Yeah, I've definitely been thinking about the implication of ChatGPT and data tooling, and if maybe there's a way you could just like make data tooling from just generative AI. So anyway,
dude, I'll drop in the chat. This is wild because 2 days ago, I just saw a tool that helps you use ChatGPT to stand up your Kubernetes cluster. And what could go wrong?
Probably a lot right now, but the thing is, I'm very bullish on this. I think it's going to get better. So yeah, and that's the crux of it. Everyone kind of, I think, focuses on like where it is today, but where it is tomorrow, I don't know. And the thing I've been talking with people about too is I think we're about to enter this weird science fiction world where these generative AI is actually doing stuff that is going to enlighten us as blind spots that we've had too. Maybe there are better ways to run a Kubernetes cluster we haven't thought of. So just like, when an AlphaGo beat Lee Sedol back in the day, like it came up with moves that people just weren't contemplating. It's like, why would you ever do that?
Yeah.
And I think we're going to start seeing the same thing with knowledge and, just things are going to impact the data field quite heavily. It's something I've been writing about quite a bit. So
for the next book,
using ChatGPT, I've been writing about it too.
I bet.
It's like, but it's interesting times for sure.
You got another book coming, right?
Yeah, I'm working on a book on data modeling right now. And actually generative AI is like completely throwing me for a loop on that one. So I've been spending a lot of cycles thinking about the ramifications of it. So I mean, the notion really is now that I'm thinking, well, I mean, we've had all these different ways of modeling data and thinking about data and knowledge, since we started thinking and writing way back in the day and as humans. But I think AI and ML sort of opens up a new door into how we perceive data and might model it again in ways that we might not have considered. And so, it might seem very alien at first, but that's something I've been thinking about recently that I wasn't thinking about when I started the book. So that's interesting. But the notion of the book really is to focus as much as possible on the upstream ramifications of data modeling, right? Like if you can get data correct at the source when data is created, it makes it a lot easier for things like data engineering, ML engineering, and so forth. But it really does start from understanding and being intelligent about data creation and modeling more upstream, actually. I think it's especially at us, we tend to focus on data analytics and ML. And I think it's absolutely the wrong way to think about this. You have to think about data as a very continuous flowing life cycle, where maybe you might model it in different ways along the life cycle, but it's um, it's like water, it flows, and there is no one way to model data. I don't agree with that notion. There are many ways, but there is a central way to think about the concept of what the data is supposed to describe and represent, right? So that's the notion of the book. So, yep.
Dude, you got way too philosophical for me on this little.
Well, I had to after my
chat.
smart ass talk. So, you had to, at least I have to exhibit like some semblance of like having half a brain. So,
Oh man. All right.
yeah,
I'm gonna kick you off now as much as I love
sounds
talking
good. Good
to you.
idea. Good idea. Yeah. Okay.